Hello, science friends. We're back today for lesson 5.9, Water Changes the Land. So besides wind, water is another very common way to change the land through weathering, erosion, and deposition. So let's learn more about that today. Our text says, moving water can change Earth's surface in a big way. For example, it took over 1 million years for the Virgin River to form in the Zion Canyon in Utah. So that's the picture that we're seeing here. How does moving water change Earth's surface? Like wind, moving water carries sediment such as sand and pebbles. Sediment carried by the Virgin River scraped and chipped away rock on the sides and bottom of the river. It took many years for the river to carve the canyon. So basically, down in here, there was something called the Virgin River. The Virgin River would pick up pieces of sediment and just carry it along the river. Well, similar to wind, as the river was carrying the sediment would bump into the rocks on the sides. And every time the sediment would hit the rocks on the side, it would start to weather it, would wear it away. Okay? And the more weathering that happened, the more sediment there was, and the more it started to carve this out. But it's important to remember that this is not something that happened overnight. This took place over the course of 1 million years. So when we talk about weathering and erosion and deposition, this is not something you're going to see happen overnight. This is something that's going to take a long time. Okay? If you hiked through the canyon, you might see that many of the rocks are smooth and rounded. Sediment carried along by the water bumps and rubs against larger rocks. Eventually, the surface of the rocks wears away. The rocks become smoother, more rounded, and smaller. Weathering, erosion, and deposition are mostly slow processes, but over time they can make huge changes to Earth's surface. So as I said before, as the river is carrying the sediment, it's bumping into the rocks, it's breaking off pieces, that's weathering, right? And then as it does that, it can smooth the rocks. It can make them more rounded and less jagged, and it can also make them smaller. So that's how the water changes the Earth's land. Okay, a couple things, let's check these out. Over time, the Virgin River eroded enough rock to form this canyon. Okay, so this right here is a canyon. Okay, as it mentioned over here, the Zion Canyon in Utah. Maybe some of you have even been there before. Okay, with this did not always look like this. This land was actually more even. This valley right here in the middle of the canyon did not exist before. The river helped carve it out. And we're talking, again, millions of years. This didn't just happen from a Monday to a Tuesday. Millions of years this has worn away to create this canyon. Over here, you see a beautiful picture. Rushing water in a stream in Zion Canyon weathers and erodes rocks, making them smoother. Okay, so as this water is running over these rocks, there are sediment pieces in there, sometimes so small we don't even really see them. Okay, but as that's happening, the rocks are getting smoother. Okay, just like the sandpaper we talked about in the wind lesson, the same thing is happening here. As the water drags the sediment over these rocks, it's helping to smooth them out. Okay, so a few important things I'd like to discuss with you and help you remember. I think back to the post that you guys made earlier in this, where it asked you, when you think about when there's a big rainstorm and water gathers and it starts kind of running down the street. I know that happens on my street sometimes. When you look at it, is it clear or is it carrying some other things? And I always see mine carrying like dirt and other pieces. Sometimes there's trash if people leave trash on the ground, but the water will carry things away. The more water there is and the faster it's moving, the heavier things it can pick up. Okay, so for example, the wind can only pick up very small pieces of sediment. Okay, the wind is not made to carry large pieces of sediment, but water can actually take more the faster it's going. So like the more rain we get, the faster the rain is falling to the ground, the faster it's flowing towards maybe a drain, the heavier sediment it can carry. So that's where you might see it carry bigger pieces. Again, when we think back to that whole picture from one of our other lessons with the rocks in the middle of the field, water did not transport those huge, giant rocks. We're talking about not boulder sized things, but little pieces of sediment, like the minuscule pieces that sometimes you can barely see, or at the most maybe a semi-large rock, but still a rock that would fit in the size of your in the palm of your hand. It would not be big enough that it would be bigger than your hand. The water is not strong enough to transport anything that is that heavy. Okay? All right, so a couple important things I want to go over before we leave today. As far as moving the sediment, remember water can move sediment that is heavier than the wind can, but still not very heavy at all. Okay? When we think about how the river has changed the land, remember the places where the water is flowing faster can weather the area more than places where the water is flowing more slowly. Remember, just like we talked about way back in Unit 1, the more energy something has, the faster it can go. So the faster the water's moving, the more energy it has, the more it can weather or erode. Okay? Let's see, what else? After the rocks were weathered, so after the river took the sediment and slammed it up against the rocks and weathered it more, the erosion was the river taking the sediment with it. And then the deposition is wherever the river ended or wherever it decided that the sediment was going to stop and the sediment was kind of dropped in a certain place, that would be your deposition. Okay? So all three of those things have a role here when water changes the land. And then speaking specifically about this canyon is formed because as the sediment is moving through the water, it's scraping away pieces of the rocks on the sides of the canyon. And that's what makes it go into the shape that you see here. Okay? Well, I hope you guys enjoyed talking about how water changes the land. Good luck on your fill in the blanks. Good luck on your time to climb. And good luck on your wrap it up questions as well. Have a great day.